Hello, welcome to Objective 1 of your additional focus area, Modern America. This is conflicts in the Middle East. During these conflicts, we had different leaders, both for the United States, which is top row, and for either Al-Qaeda or Iraq, depending on who you are looking at. This is President George Bush Sr., President George Bush Jr., and President Barack Obama. As you guys might recognize this guy the most. This is Saddam Hussein, and this is Osama bin Laden. Depending on what war you're looking at, there is a different leader during each conflict. Let's look at the Gulf War first. It happened from August 1990 to February 1991. Its combat code name was Operation Desert Storm. The leaders at this time were President George Bush Sr. and Saddam Hussein. The war was fought over Iraq invading Kuwait for oil, and Iraq refusing to follow the UN's demands to withdraw from Kuwait or get out of Kuwait. If you guys remember, the UN was a peacekeeping organization, so they didn't want this to go to war. Ultimately it does, but the US wins and they let Saddam Hussein stay in power. This comes back and affects the United States when they go into war again with Iraq and Saddam Hussein in 2003. At this time, however, we have a new president. We have George Bush Jr. He is George Bush Sr.'s son. This war happens between March and April of 2003. It's called Operation Iraqi Freedom. The United States wants to overthrow Saddam Hussein because they claim that he has weapons of mass destruction, he is connected to terrorism, and he's killing and abusing the human rights of the people in his country. The United States wins, and Hussein is later executed for his crimes in 2006. The next war we'll be looking at is the War on Terror, which started in 2001 and is currently happening. The War on Terror is actually being fought by many countries versus terrorism, in specific Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. This war began under George Bush Jr., which is this guy right here, after the 9/11 attacks headed by this guy Osama bin Laden. On 9/11, 4 American airplanes were hijacked by a terrorist group called Al-Qaeda. Hijack means that they were stolen, and it killed nearly 3,000 people in the United States. This was the largest attack on U.S. soil since Pearl Harbor. One of the attacks was the Twin Towers in New York, New York. 2 out of the 4 hijacked airplanes hit the Twin Towers. This is a picture of the towers before they fell. At the time, 2,600 people were killed. People from both the airplanes and the people, either the police or fire department or emergency workers that were helping people inside the building. Another attack was on the Pentagon. This was done by the 3rd out of the 4th airplanes hijacked. The Pentagon serves for the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense, which includes all the military branches. The west side of the building is hit and collapsed. 189 people, including those inside the building and the airplane, die. Another and the last attack on 9/11 was actually a plane that was headed to the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. This is famously known as Flight 93. That was actually an attack stopped by the passengers inside the plane. They prevented these terrorists to actually make it all the way to the Capitol. Unfortunately, the airplane crash landed in an empty field, killing all 44 people in the plane. Some of the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks was that some survivors were found, but not very many. The cleanup took months. It took about 7 months, and it was completed around May 2002. In 2011, Osama bin Laden is killed under the Barack Obama administration, and currently we still have terrorism. It has weakened, but it's still existent. This has been Objective 1 of your additional focus area, Modern America, Conflicts in the Middle East.